Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into something incredibly heavy, but absolutely crucial to understand. We're unpacking the source material that details the 1947 partition, the division of India and Pakistan. This isn't just some dry historical timeline. It's a deep dive into an event that literally reshaped the entire geography of South Asia and altered the destinies of millions overnight. We're going to explore the complete story here, the political moves, the major players, and most importantly, the profound human cost. So let's get right into it. Was the Night of Freedom a doomsday? Man, it's a jarring contrast, isn't it? On one hand, August 1947 was this long-awaited celebration of independence, the final end of colonial rule. The air was buzzing with speeches of freedom, new beginnings, the whole shebang. But the source material forces us to confront a very, very different reality unfolding at the exact same time. For countless people, as the clock struck midnight and brought freedom to a new nation, it also unleashed absolute chaos. It was, quite literally, doomsday. What was a huge celebration in the capital cities was an absolute nightmare playing out in the borderlands. Okay, let's dive into this. 10 million plus. That is over 1 crore human beings. It's a number that's just incredibly difficult to truly wrap your head around, right? The source makes it emphatically clear that the partition wasn't just some macro-political decision signed on a piece of paper in a sterile room. No, it was an unprecedented human catastrophe. This 10 million figure, it represents the sheer scale of lives totally upended. Homes lost, entire communities shattered. Over 10 million people were suddenly forced to leave everything they knew behind, going on these desperate, dangerous migrations across chaotic, newly formed borders. It's a staggering statistic of human displacement that we absolutely have to keep front and center as we look at the politics behind it. So how exactly did this massive displacement even happen? Honestly, it came down to a single line drawn on a map, the 5-week line. A single line that would completely dictate the future of millions. And as our source highlights, the monumental task of drawing this incredibly complex, highly sensitive border was handed to a British lawyer named Cyril Radcliffe. But the truly mind-blowing part isn't just who drew it, it's the timeline. Radcliffe was given a mere 5 weeks. Think about that. 5 weeks to decide the fate of an entire subcontinent. Just 5 weeks to draw a line that would permanently alter the lives of over 10 million people. And this whole tragedy was really fueled by a staggering contrast in leadership and logistics. On one side, you have Lord Mountbatten, the last viceroy, aggressively pushing forward the timeline for independence and rushing the British exit. And this extreme haste directly collided with Radcliffe's totally impossible 5-week window to actually execute the division of the land. Our source reports on this very neutrally, but the facts are clear. Mountbatten's rush to just expedite the handover of power meant Radcliffe had virtually no time. It was a rapid political exit strategy clashing violently with the careful, meticulous planning that a partition of this massive scale actually demanded. And unfortunately, the price for all this haste, it was paid by the ordinary citizens on the ground. Which brings us to a rather fascinating historical mystery. Where was Mahatma Gandhi on that night of celebration? Think about it. The very architect of the independence movement, the man who dedicated his entire life to fighting for this exact moment, was noticeably absent from the grand festivities in the capital. While other leaders celebrated, Gandhi chose to completely step away from the jubilation. Why? Well, because he was deeply mourning the partition. He was far away in areas completely torn apart by communal violence, trying desperately to bring peace and heal the immense fractures this whole thing had caused. His absence is just such a profound statement on the dual nature of that night. Freedom completely intertwined with tragedy. Now, to understand the true legacy of the 1947 partition, we have to shift our focus away from the politicians at the top and look at the harsh ground realities. The real story isn't found in the halls of government. It's found in the dirt, the villages, and the borders of 3 very specific regions: Punjab, Bengal, and Kashmir. These are the places where those abstract lines drawn by Radcliffe became brutal physical realities. So let's break down exactly what went down in these areas. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how distinct and devastating the regional fallout was across these 3 areas. First, in Punjab, we see the harsh reality of a region just sliced right down the middle. This sparked some of the most intense and immediate mass migrations and violence, because communities that had lived side by side for centuries were suddenly told they were on the wrong side of the border. Second, you have the division of Bengal in the east, which created entirely different yet equally massive geopolitical and humanitarian challenges that would echo for decades to come. And finally, the source points directly to the origins of the Kashmir dispute. It's a highly complex, unresolved conflict directly rooted in the hurried, chaotic way the princely states were handled during this 1947 division. These three areas really form the absolute epicenter of the partition's legacy. We've been talking about millions of people, incredibly fast timelines, and vast regional conflicts. But the documentary source makes sure to anchor all of this macro history in intimate human truth. Take the story of Ramlal and Karim. And this brilliantly illustrates the deeply painful everyday stories of the partition. We're talking about two men, likely neighbors or close friends for decades, whose lives were ripped apart overnight by a political line they had absolutely no say in drawing. Imagine that, a separation where one person has to flee across a newly drawn border, running right through their own village, leaving everything behind. Their story really forces us to look past all the massive statistics and remember that every single one of those 10 million displaced people had a name, a family, and a heartbreak just like Ramlal and Karim. As we near the end of this explainer, our source material leaves us with an incredibly poignant, universal reminder: those who forget, repeat it. The documentary explicitly states its goal isn't to incite division, but to educate. The history of the 1947 partition is incredibly heavy. It's uncomfortable, and it's deeply tragic. But you know what? It is absolutely necessary to remember. Ignoring the catastrophic human cost of political haste just leaves the door wide open for history to repeat itself down the road. We really have to look directly at this history so we fully grasp the incredibly high price of division. And that leaves us with a lingering, provocative question to reflect on. Must humanity always remain above all? The source ends with a direct plea to us as the audience. Understand this history, but ensure that humanity is kept above all other allegiances. When lines are drawn, when political pressure is cranked up, and when divisions are stoked, what happens to the individual human being? The 1947 partition shows us exactly what happens when humanity is momentarily forgotten in the chaotic rush of geopolitics. I really hope this explainer has given you a clearer, more structured understanding of the deep complexities and the profound human impact of this event. Thanks for joining me to explore this vital piece of history. Take some time to really think about that final question. See you next time.